Hello, everybody on this Thursday. And I'm just proud of myself that I just knew what today was, because these days start to roll together all of a sudden. And thank you guys for coming out on a Thursday. This is like, I don't even know how many of these we have done, but I can tell you, I'm not going to tell anybody else that this is going to be one of my favorites. I already know, because this woman right here is just so incredibly gifted and genuine and authentic. And this actual Q&A was birthed out of just a homegirl conversation where we, like, during this time, just speaking and just saying, hey, we're seeing this, we're seeing that. And I was like, wait a minute, you have to come on and you got to speak this into some people, because people are going through some real hard, tough issues. And so I am more than happy to welcome Dr. Kimberly Ellison to our fantastic small business series for Think3 Media. As I'll let you say, I mean, she's an international speaker. I'm surprised we could get a hold of you. Like, she wasn't in Dubai speaking. The pandemic saved her for us.
Travel restrictions.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, what you're doing, and we'll get rocking.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Leah, in your organization, Think3 Media as well. And thank you all for giving of your time. And I always say, just because we are isolated or doing the social distancing does not mean that you don't have things to do. And people get it confused. They think because you're social distancing that you just have all the time in the world, and that's not always necessarily true. So thank you for your time. I know tonight we were going to have a great discussion, but let me share a little bit about myself. One thing is, I just love seeing the outcomes of people. I like to, I just know that I was just born to help people move from potential to achievement in whatever it is, if it's their personal, professional, or their spiritual growth and development of their life. It is my passion and my purpose to see other people walk in their purpose. And so with that, I've walked through training and development through organizations where my background lends itself to about 19 years of performance improvement, leadership development, career development in the corporate realm, but also in ministry and in a nonprofit sector. I've worked with women professionally, helping women translate kingdom principles or biblical principles into practical everyday life solutions. I love what I do. I love the women that I get an opportunity to work with. I love the men that I get an opportunity to cross paths with as well. And so I'm just here to answer questions and really share some of my experiences, some of the knowledge that I've been able to acquire over the years, and as well as really connect with you all in a way that when we walk away on tonight, we'll be moving forward closer to the person we see in our dreams.
And I just love that. And for some of you guys who actually, some that have been logging in and out were at Activate Her. So you guys got to see Dr. Kimberly live and in the flesh and in person when she was talking about branding and your internal DNA and all of that stuff. So y'all know she rocked the house. And so I just had to have her back. But I think this discussion is so important because for a lot of people, they're going through some really tough times. So either they're business owners and they've had to totally pivot, as is the key word, right? Or shift dynamics in their business. And then there's other people who were possibly employed that lost their jobs, but maybe this is a time in their life where now it's time for you to put whatever was on your heart out into the space. And so there's a lot of confusion, there's fear, there's negativity. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's very paralyzing.
It is.
So you could just sit on the couch and just be like, I don't know what to do in this moment. But then in our conversation, we were like, no, this is the perfect time for you to do that thing and push it out and produce. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you view this whole situation from that standpoint?
Absolutely. First of all, let's recognize the fact that we are in a crisis. And when we're in a crisis in this pandemic, and it's not just individually, or it's not just for us personally, it's not professionally, it's every single part of who we are has been affected, from our family life, from all different types of relationships, to our professional relationships, to our girlfriend, boyfriend, relationships, everything in our life has been affected. Even how we go to the gym, the things that we eat, like every part of who we are has been affected. And so that means we are in the middle of a crisis. A crisis, when we think about it, is something that we cannot control. It's something that and it just comes to us, and we literally just comes out of nowhere. And we have no way. It's an event that's going to lead us to some type of end, but we don't know what the end looks like. And so it happens. So let's acknowledge the fact that we are in the middle of a crisis, and just from us being here today is, it's kudos to all of us who are remaining in a place of trying to stay healthy, trying to stay inside, trying to social distance, but also saying, this is still a time for me to produce. This is still a time for me to connect with other people, that I'm able to pick up some tools and tips and things from, and I'm able to sharpen my saw. But one thing I want to keep in mind, Leah, and the rest of us who are on the call today, is to really think about a couple of things. One, I want you to think about two words that we're going to talk about tonight. And I just really thought about what that looks like. For one, when you're in a crisis, there are two things. One is self-preservation, because everybody's trying to make sure that they have, they can save themselves, and maybe that they have to hold on tighter to their money, or they don't know if they're going to lose their jobs. Some have lost their jobs, others have lost family members. And even speaking from a point of personal inquiry, I just lost my brother-in-law to COVID on Friday. And so with that, I've also had family members, about 4 to 5 family members, who have tested positive and were quarantined. And in that, we had to have creative ways in order to support them in the middle of a crisis. And so it's very difficult emotionally for us to really talk about how do we produce, or how do we remain focused in the middle of this pandemic. Well, I want to assure you that this pandemic does not, it did come in a way to help us to see things in a different way. But again, we are not destroyed. We are not down for the count. We may be still, but that does not mean we cannot still produce. And so I just want to encourage you, self-preservation, and the next word is going to be self-preparation. And they come both under the crisis and in a pandemic, and they both are going to be essential. Because when you think about that, self-preservation says it comes out of pain and fear. And then self-preparation comes out of ambition and vision. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like, and how do we compartmentalize both of those in a way that's going to help us to produce, and that's going to help us increase productivity, and then that's going to take us to the highest performance that we can do and see and be the best version of who we are. Yeah,
I love that you talked about self-preservation, because I just think that's human instinct. When something happens, in law, we always talked about it as fight or flight.
Yep.
Something happens, you're ready. And Olga's shaking her head because she knows from the mental and the cognitive part of it, like, you're ready to
really
to defend yourself. And for some people, though, in that defense and self-preservation, it's a halt, because you're not knowing which way to go, which way to be. And then the uncertainty of everything is, okay, I don't know how long this is going to last. And then fear creeps in.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, what tips do you have for people to kind of rise from these ashes at this moment in time?
Well, first we have to know that self-preservation is our alt control delete. It's our default setting. It's the thing, because we're human. And so the first thing we do is, if you think about the computer, if you want to go back to the beginning or default, you go to alt control delete, and it takes you to your default setting. And that's what we do when we're in a pandemic or a crisis, or when we've experienced something that is painful, or that we think is in the face of fear. And so that is who we are naturally. So first of all, give yourself some grace, because that's just a natural response to say, oh my gosh, I see companies shutting down. I see people losing their jobs. I see people dying. So what am I going to do? Because I have to now preserve what I have. I have to now go run for cover. But first of all, let's understand that pain is real. So that's one thing. So when you talk about what are some steps and what are some tips, is number one, acknowledge the pain, but also know the pain point. And so when we think about acknowledging the pain, is that of that fear, and of that fear, how much of it is really pain? Because oftentimes it comes from various medias or that you're hearing, and then it starts to instill fear in you. So how much of that fear is real, and how much of that fear has really inflicted pain upon you? That's number one. So identifying that, and that's going to help you start to look at how much am I to really preserve, and how much damage is really caused, is this pandemic or this crisis really causing me? And it's not just the pandemic, it's beyond that. Anything in our life that causes our pain, whether it's a job loss, whether it's a client that we lost, whether it's something, a presentation we didn't do well on, it causes pain, and we go into this self-preservation mode. And so I want us to really think about how much of this fear is really real to us, and how much pain did it really cause, and not something in which we assume or we are anticipating it causing. So let's stay in there. But some of the things I want to talk about is, when we're talking about self-preservation, a few things. One is we have to think about, are we preparing ourselves to move forward? That's one thing. And so self-preservation, you give it its place, understanding what it means. What is it really? But then I need you to understand that even in a crisis, it's about self-preparing. How are you preparing yourself in the crisis and beyond the crisis? And that's critical. And I think, Leah, and for those of us who are here on tonight, we confuse a couple of words. So I want to kind of set the record for that. One, everyone's saying, you know, I'll produce. You need to be productive. You need to perform. Well, let's level set on what those words mean. And that way it would bring us, it gives a framework for where we are emotionally, where we are spiritually, where we are professionally, and we can actually put it in a framework that works for us individually. So what do you mean? One, when you think of the word produce, all right, or to produce, that means to bring into existence, okay, to cause, to produce steam, right? And whenever you think of steam, that means something has happened. If you think about steam that's come from under, say if you're cooking on a stove, steam never happens until the fire starts to heat up the pot. It never happens. And so to produce is to really start to bring into existence. Really, to produce something, it could be intellectually, it could be creatively, it could be physically, but to produce is really just generating action. You've not yet moved anything, but you started to dream. You started to create vision boards. You started to write down goals. You start to really think about what are you going to do with your time. And so that now you are producing. So that's producing. That's produce. To produce. So I don't want us to get it confused, because you can actually be having a down day and still produce. So that's one thing. So please understand that it's to bring it into existence, meaning you're starting to acknowledge something. So if you had goals, or if you had a business that you wanted to work on, a book you wanted to write, partnerships that you wanted to do, paperwork that you wanted to get done, you can produce that by starting to write down your schedule for it. You can actually identify when you're going to work on it. You can start to identify links that you need to go to, content that you need to pull together, and you've produced.
I love that, Dr. Kimberly, just because, as you know, digitally, it's a rat race. And so you can kind of get sucked into so-and-so's doing this, and so-and-so just made this TV appearance and dropped a book and launched this course and did this, and that. And then you get completely overwhelmed. So I like how you simplified that and saying, like, you're running your own race. You're in your own lane. So whether producing to you means, you know, just creating the outline of the book and then figuring out, how am I self-publishing or am I doing it this way? Make that decision. Like, that is bringing something into fruition versus feeling like you have to be in the rat race of what, society is calling production in this moment, which is completely overwhelming. So I love it. Simplify that.
And that's the thing we have to know. I think we want to make sure that we keep everything in context, right? So everybody's life looks a little different or is different right now, and so to speak, in different for reasons. You know, some people have children at home, some people do not. Some people are single, some people are married. Some people still have to go to work and some do not. So we have to take it in context of what's going on. But that's the first one we produce, is you can actually start the steam without actually boiling the eggs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that could be nothing in that pot but water, but you produced. Now I want you to think about productivity. As when you think about productivity, that is a measure. That's something effective. You can actually measure efficiency. So now you're thinking about, what is my level of productivity from what's being produced? Are you still at where you're producing, where you're having generation of thought, things have been activated, or now have you literally just started to begin to measure, have I moved forward toward my goals? Have I made contacts? Have I actually taken a step forward? Now you have something to measure. When you think about productivity reports, they're more focused on what is the measure of your producing. They haven't gotten to the outcome yet. See, outcomes is my next word, which is performance. Because when we think about productivity, is what happens after it's generated. What happens after you've identified what it is you're going to do. This is so good, especially for those of us who are business owners, entrepreneurs, students, professionals in different arenas. You have to think about the productivity is, how much are you moving forward toward it every single day or every other day? Now, what is your level of productivity? And you want to make sure that you're capturing that so that you can look back over the crisis when you're out of that and you're able to say, this is how I have performed. Performance is outcome.
Wow.
And we never think of that. We use them all inclusive, like we think they're all one word. And they're really three different words, and they are actually moving in the same direction, but they can be done and prompted at a different time. And so when you think about performance, you're not looking at you're not looking at your productivity or your produce individually. When you talk about performance, you're looking at the overall picture, and it's measuring your outcomes. What are the results? What happened as a result of you generating thought? You produce that thought and being in productivity, in motion, measurement, and then here's the level of performance. I think that's the thing that we get confused. And so I want to level set that and give ourselves, I'll say this over and over again, a measure of grace, not a measure of looking at someone else and competing. See, when we measure ourselves against grace, that means let me take a look with where I am, what's going on around me, this level of crisis, my pain and my pain point and my fear. And now let me start to produce from there.
I love that, Dr. Kimberly, because it just breaks it down and it takes the stress away out of the entire process. Because you and I, we were talking about the meme that was going around that was like, if you don't come out of this this pandemic with a book, a business, a course, then you were just lazy or whatever that was. And that's not entirely true, because like you said, everybody is different. So say you had a dream to write that book or author that book 10 years ago, but you started, boiling the pot and started writing down the steps. To me, that's success in and of itself, because you did that and you waited 10 years to get to that point.
That's it. So if you're doing that now, where you said, let me dust this off, let me blow the dust off of this, thing outline that I wrote. Now you're starting to produce. I do want to say this. I actually stand in a place of really helping people move and being disciplined in where you are. Oftentimes when we talk about being our performance, our overall outcomes, it's the productivity area in that middle, the measurement, that we have little movement because we've not yet disciplined ourselves enough to really get the motion and get the momentum going. And so I do want to say that in order to get the outcome and high performance outcomes, and may I add that when you talk about high performing, that means you're above average. That means you're at the 10% of those who are in your actual industry, and you are moving and grooving, or those who are measured against you at that same level, you are at the top 10%. High performance, when you think about it, I used to teach high performing teams. And I would go around to these different corporate companies and I would teach high performing teams. How is it that you can get your team to move from good to great and great to high and, and the best? Well, the whole thing about high performers is that high performers, what I've learned about individuals who are on the team, they're not born. People think, oh, she's just a natural person. She can just, she just pops it, you know, she's just born that way. She just wakes up. No. High performers, they are conditioned by habit and by circumstances and situations. Practice makes habit. And people say practice makes perfect. No. Practice makes habit. And so these high performers have disciplined themselves in such a way that they created structure, they created systems, they are, again, the conditioning. And that could be from experiences as well. So if you worked in an environment, and I'm a firm believer in this for everyone who's listening, different environments you can be cultivated in different environments that will produce a different outcome. You can put the same seed, but in different soil, and you're going to produce something differently. Each seed is conducive to what soil is planted in. So if you're in a work environment that's going to help you grow and cultivate your development as a high performer, or you're in an environment where it's not going to cultivate that for you, especially business owners, if you have a team and a staff that you're leading, or even contract workers, and the environment is not conducive to what the seed is planted in, what I mean by that, if there's no discipline, if there's no focus, consistency, direction, vision, then what you're doing is stunting the growth of yourself as a business owner, yourself as an employee, yourself, again, as managing a whole team. And so I just want to encourage us to know that in that productivity stage, it's going to require focus, it's going to require discipline, and it's going to require us to have a commitment, a level of commitment like never before. And I can throw out cliches and terms, but at the end of the day, this is what's going to help you in the productivity component to get that performance outcome. And that's the topic. We were talking about, how do you have high performance in the middle of a crisis? Well, you're going to have to induce your level of discipline. Induce, I mean, you're going to have to do something different. When a doctor induces a woman who's in labor, they induce her and they put in some type of medicine that normally she doesn't have in her body. So it's the same with you. You're in a crisis situation in the middle of a pandemic. You're emotionally sick. You're in this traumatic situation. People are losing jobs. People are dying. We've already talked about self-preservation. So you're looking at the pain point and the fear factor. Now, within context, you're going to move from there into the self-preparation. And now you're going to take a look at, how do I produce? What's my level of productivity so I can have performance outcomes? Then we can move to high performing. We're just trying to get to performance.
I love that. Well, you know me, I go from A to Z because I love that, because even with myself, there's things that I do every single day without fail. And sometimes they could get a little bit, feeling like you're on the hamster wheel, but as far as what are the 3 things that I'm going to get done today? And even with my goals, I have those mapped out 3 months ahead, and then I back myself into it. So I know week by week by week, this is what I'm doing so that I can reach this by the quarter. And I totally agree with you, because I read, I'm really nerdy. I read all the books. But even all of the top CEOs and those guys, they do the exact same thing. So when you're talking about production, if you look at their habits, they're doing the exact same thing almost every single day. And whether they want to do it or not, they make sure that it's done. Because the lower percentage of people who, so like you said, they're in the top percent. So those that are on the bottom percent are the people that are saying, you know what, I'll do that tomorrow. And tomorrow turns into next week, turns into the month from now, that turns into a year.
Listen, the biggest thing, and I wrote this note here about when you think about, performance and high performing individuals, your performance is never measured against anyone else's. It's always intrinsic. So even if you are in a competition, it's still measured against yourself. Even though you can look at someone else's outcomes, You can't get to actually obtain that until you deal with your own disciplines, until you deal with your own practice, until you deal with the way in which you show up every single day. And that's even in the middle of a crisis. Crisis happen to us. However, they also create something within us. They put pressure on potential. Potential is the thing that's locked up on the inside of us that we haven't yet introduced ourselves to. And so when we're pressed against a wall, or we're pressed in a pandemic, you now have something that you call potential that you're going to tap into and actually going to help produce it from you, out of you. And so we want to think about those terms too. Like, you want to think about the pressure. It's going to be two things. You're going to pressure and start to move into a state of emotional trauma, depression, of not having a healthy sense of self-discipline. Or you're going to move into a state where you're going to actually start to say, I have a healthy sense of where I am emotionally. I'm going to need to connect with individuals, other business owners. We're going to have to go to a networking event, do it via Zoom, in order to maintain a healthy system of self-discipline and self-preparation. So it's totally up to the individual, but even when you're performing at your highest, it's never about competing. It's never about measuring yourself against others. It's all about what is it that you have in your hands to do? What are your skill sets? What are your creative measures? What's the content you already have? What are those? What are you pulling out MP4s, recording MP3s? Like, what are you doing in this time that's going to help you to be more prepared during and then after?
Yeah, and I think to that point, Olga, that answers your question. I don't think that you can put high performance, and I think people hear high performance and you automatically think I'm doing 50 million things in one day and I'm go, 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 go. And so when people hear high performance, you relate that to burnout because you're associating it with, oh my God, now I've got to do 50 times more than I thought I would. And they don't really equate, right? Because like Dr. Kimberly said, like that's not, like your journey is different from everybody else's. So what could actually be in that productivity realm could just be 3 simple things that you make sure you're disciplined enough to do every single day. That doesn't equate to in your mind where it's like, well, I got to be a high performer, so I got to make that 3 become 10. Of course you're going to burn out. You're doing too much. And it don't take a lot.
I agree. And one thing we have to remember is the word condition. So high performers are conditioned. So when the conditions change, they're uncomfortable. So if they're in an environment where they don't feel that it's either they're maximizing their potential or maximizing their level of output, and they're not getting the results, it is stressful. It does cause burnout, because what we then do, we're used to a condition, an environment that helps us to produce at that level. We're used to getting things and producing at a high level. Productivity is increased, and it fuels us, it feeds us. And so if we do not if we're not careful, we will burn out. And I say that because we're fueled by outcomes. Goals are great, dates on calendars are great, but we like to see the outcomes, and we like to see the results. We've accomplished it. And so we are fueled by that. But the way in which high performers have to be in tune with when you're burning out is if you are moving at a high rate, you're going to be sleepless nights. You're going to have early mornings. You're going to have, and you have to be in tune with what are those things that say, I need to scale back. You need to be very aware of when it is. And the earth, listen, the ceiling ain't falling in because today you weren't performing at a high level. Remember, it's all about productivity. Give yourself productivity measures, especially for high performers. When you think about performing at a high level consistently and you're about to burn out, you need to set in parameters and barriers, healthy boundaries, where you say, Olga, for example, well, today I'm going to work on one project and I'm going to finish X, Y, and Z. And it's going to be tough, because you're going to start feeling like you're lazy. You're going to start, most times people feel like, oh, I'm lazy, I'm not doing anything. I get in that regard as well. But remember, what did I say at the very beginning? We have to give ourselves some grace for where we are.
I think my question is more related to I'm a PhD student. I'm working with a lot of PhD students, and they're all like very high performers. But the question with that, like, you don't see the result immediately. Like, kind of how you used to perform before, and you've been like, kind of in the master program or like undergrad, you have like grades, you have results, and here, like, for a longest time you cannot see the result, even like you work your butt off, and a lot of people just really burned out, and they're like leaving the field. They're just like, no, it's just not for me. So like, this is very hard to maintain this balance between like still feeling good and feeling productive, even though like things are setting back. I mean, I think it's the same with like business owners, like, when you're always in a lot of stress, but you don't see this progress immediately. Like you said, like, it's very important to have like this little things of success at least once in a while. So like, yeah, my question was mostly about that. This like very, very high performance who like in a moment feel like they're like failing all the time, kind of like how to keep going.
Yes, this is perfect and a great question, because others may feel this way as well. I always say you have to create anchors, and you have to give yourself small wins, low hanging fruit. And then if you're in a program where the results are far reaching, then you need to actually identify goals and markers for yourself, since you know you are a high performer. And it may not be the end result for the program, but it may be that you completed a step in the program, you completed documents. And so for you, you may say, for one person, it could say, I turned in one assignment. That's low performing. That's baseline. That's what you're supposed to do. But for you, it could say, I'm going to have all 10 or whatever turned in at a particular time. And you're going to have to create celebrations in there. For high performance, they don't celebrate. I'm one of them. We move on. We plow through. Once it's done, that is the celebration. The celebration is completion. And so I believe that, those of us who are here on tonight can really all attest to, when you have something that's far reaching and ahead of you, you set milestone markers where you can feel accomplished, that you celebrate. And then you can also say, well, I accomplished X, I accomplished Y, and now it's at the end result. And I say that because it took me 7 years to complete my PhD. And in the process of completing my PhD, I was like, I don't know if this ever gonna end. And I didn't know if I'd ever have my life back. And just being transparent, there were so many crisis moments that happened during that 7 years that I could not see the end. But what I did do is I started to say, well, by May, I gotta be here. And then by November, I got to be here, and things would happen in between, but I knew that those were my markers. And so I would encourage all of us that are in this, in situations where our goals or our vision is far reaching, that we establish milestone markers. It sounds basic, but it's difficult. It is very difficult, especially when you are affirmed by the outcomes that you produce. They bring us, that comfort. We affirm. It affirms us. It lets us know we're doing the right thing. We're valuable. We're adding value. Those types of things. And so that's a deeper layer of how are we validating the work that we do? Are we validating it with who we are, or are we validated by what we do? And so all those things, Olga, are what you do. It's not who you are. And that's for all of us to remember, even as business owners, individual leaders at our jobs, individual contributors at work, or even those who are trying to start a small business. It is what we do. It's not who we are. And when the vision or the goal is far reaching, we are still that same person who is productive, who can produce and can get those outcomes.
And I love what you said, Dr. Kimberly, about, you said it like right when I was thinking it, because I'm like, I'm the queen of never celebrating at all, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's cute. Hit my checklist, gotta go on, gotta move on. And someone, I think it was my brother, which it was just crazy because with my family, they never really understood my entrepreneurial journey. And just in a phone call with him, maybe it was God, and he says, you know what, sis, like, you gotta celebrate the small wins along the way. It'll help you appreciate the journey so much more. It'll give you fulfillment, and it'll give you that, that little boost of energy to not feel burned out, but to be like, dang, I'm really good at this, or dang, I'm really making some progress here, and to keep going. And so I've really had to work at that. It did not come easy at all, because in my mind, it's just like, oh, I could have done more, or I should be here, not here. But even the little things, he's like, Leah, if you pay off a credit card bill, I need you to give yourself, if you paid it off, give yourself a pat on the back.
And we have to think about that too, because goals affect our ability to produce. And so we have to be careful with, when we place these goals ahead of us. I see Christy was saying how she would get burnt out, and then she would just not become motivated. And that has something to do with our goals. If we don't accomplish goals by a certain time, or we have aggressive timelines, or we are just burning the midnight oil and really working hard and not taking a break, not self-care, not really looking at how much. Here's the deal. Most of the time we operate from our capability instead of our capacity. And just because we're capable of doing it does not mean we have the capacity to do it. And so we need to be very careful, especially those who are high achievers, business owners, those who are leading teams, those who are trying to get promoted at their workplace. Those when we're charting territory that is uncharted and we don't know what's out there, we have to know we can't take on everything. Just because we are capable of doing it does not mean we have the capacity to do it. And so you want to make sure that we are operating out of our capacity and knowing what level of capacity we are at this time, instead of just saying, oh, I'm capable. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I used to do this at my old job, so I can do this now in my business. Or I used to do, and now you're operating fully off of capability. And now you're at capacity. Here's capacity, but you've been capability, I'm capable, yes. Put me on this project, yes, I can do it. And here is capacity. And now but you already up here in capability. Now you're burnt, you've passed the level in which you could maximize who you are and being the best and producing at the highest level. Now you're maxed. Now you're no longer focused, you're no longer motivated. You know why? Because you're operating at a higher level of capability than you are capacity. And we have to find a way to even those things out and knowing when are we at capacity and not to be doing everything. And so these are, again, discussion and dialogue. When we talk about in the middle of a crisis, sometimes we'll take on other jobs or take projects that we don't want to because we feel, again, that self-preservation. Let me take this contract, or let me take this particular event so I can get paid, or I can expand my network. But now you're already at capacity, and now you're operating off capability. You're tired, you're frustrated, you're wondering, why did you do it? And so I just want to encourage us to be very in tune, to take a temperature of when we're operating at capacity and when we're operating above capacity with full capability. They both look good. They both look amazing. But internally, that's where, Christy, I hope that helps. That's where we start to feel the deflation of our motivation. Because remember, motivation is intrinsic. It's from inside out. But when we start operating from capability, we operate from the outside in. And so it starts to affect our internal motivation, because we're operating from our ability, external, instead of internally from our capacity.
And then Rashida said, it's difficult when you are marching in uncharted territory. Rashida, do you want to kind of explain or kind of give us some more context?
Well, Dr. Kimberly kind of helped me out with it, because even when we're marching in uncharted territory, we just have to remember we need to set smaller goals to get ourselves to the end goal, is what I took from what you were saying after I put that comment in there. So that helped me a lot. Because like you taking on a project, or you doing something new in your business that you have not done before, and you just like, okay, this is what I want to do, but you got to put those mile markers in between, so you're not stressing yourself out and getting frustrated that it's going to get you to that end goal.
Gotcha.
I agree, Rashida. And I also think there needs to be mile markers, but growth markers. So when you think about growth, if it's in uncharted territory, you have to know that there's some a gap for learning there. And so you have to give yourself an opportunity to grow in the gap. And if you're uncharted territories, that means even if the goals are big or small, if it's uncharted, you're unaware. You have to increase your level of knowledge in a way where you can move like you typically have in the past on projects in which you were fully adept. So you have to learn as it relates to what is in the growth gap. Fill in the growth gap when it's uncharted territory. That means you have to find, you're not going to move as fast. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to, there's a learning curve there that's going to keep you at a certain level for a period of time. And so if you're in uncharted territory, that means you don't know the terrain. You don't even know how to move freely in it. So you need to make sure that you're educated properly, you have the proper knowledge, you probably have the proper resources, and then you can move toward the goal. And so that'll help alleviate some of that frustration, is knowing that, okay, I have a gap for growth here. Now, how do I fill this gap, grow in the gap, and then move toward the goal?
That is so good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And can we just keep it real, Dr. Kimberly? You know, like when you hear a lot of the talks and a lot of the coaches, and it's like, enjoy the journey, enjoy the progress. And so like Rashida's saying, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the end likes. You know, we got all this stuff going on around us. How am I supposed to enjoy, you know, navigating in uncharted territory? Like what? How do you
it goes back, Leah, to the very beginning. Like we said, we have to take a realistic view of where we are, who we are individually, not trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing. It goes back to our level of, like, people will ask me all the time, I don't know how you produce at this level, this, you know, and do this and do that. Well, you know, it's comparing apples to oranges, because I, by nature, can write and have content, and I think of all these things. That's just a part of, again, when we said earlier, my actual conditioning. All right. So if you measuring against someone who's been conditioned this way, trained properly, you know, you're measuring yourself against, it's totally different. And so the whole point is for us to identify where we are, what is our level of capacity, capability, and what is our productivity level. I will always go back to productivity. When you talk about movement, when you talk about measuring your effectiveness, that's where we need to spend more time in productivity. Everybody's trying to get to performance, the outcome. Everybody's trying to get to the final goal. I'm going to get completion. I'm going to get accomplishment. But see, the learning happens in productivity. The growth, the stretching, the pain, the fear, all of that happens in the productivity. That's when you are actually learning and growing, and you're actually making movement. You've already produced it just from being a thought and getting it, you know, ready. But the productivity is measurement. Where are you learning? Who are you learning from? How much time are you investing? Anytime it has something to do with productivity, it's got to do with time. I remember early in my career, I worked in a call center environment, and we would get reports every single day. And in the reporting, they would rank us, and they would rank us based on a couple of things: dollar amounts collected, you know, for the day, and then we could see the week, and then we could see the month. I'm saying this because what we did the day before looked different than our month end. And so many of us are measuring our month end on what we did the day before. It doesn't look that way. Productivity happens on your average. How frequently, on average, are you really moving forward and producing? Are you really learning? Are you cutting that curve? And so you want to think about, what does that look like? I think you're measuring your end results to your daily. And we can't do that. Our daily practice will lead to our overall outcome, period, in anything we do.
Yeah, there's a really good book that we're going to go to Colette and then to Christy. There's a really good book that I read it every year called The Slight Edge, and he compares that to compound interest. So thinking about, you know, money, if you put in a penny every day versus, you know, it'll be interest upon interest upon interest upon interest, and then you'll get to this big number, you know, in the bank towards the end. And so I like how you kind of put that into perspective.
That's it.
Colette says, what if you are at a reset during this time of crisis?
So with limited knowledge of what you're resetting, It could be job, it could be family, relationship. So it depends. So I'm speaking with limited knowledge. So if we're speaking in terms of business, or we're speaking in terms of a transition or a period where you transition into some, okay, so she says business. So when we think about, you're in a great, I look at it as opportunity. And I want you to go into that self-preparation. Self-preparation says that it's going to be, I'm preparing myself today so that I can have an effective and a better tomorrow. And so what you're doing is you're resetting. So now self-preparation says, I have to have greater vision, because I got to get prepared for what's on the reset. Like, what am I resetting? And so now it's time for preparation. There's really not a lot of action. It's going to be preparing so that you can see it. So I would suggest really taking some time to get clear vision, clear direction. Most people who are high performing, when we talk about high performing teams, the teams that I've worked with that we talked about training and development for high performing teams were mostly clarity and accountability. And so you're going to have to get clarity, because if you're resetting in business and you lack clarity, you're going to always bump up against frustration. And so you want to make sure that in this self-preparation that you get clear direction, clear vision. What are your overall, and I'm not talking about goals, because we mix vision with goals, and vision and goals are different. Your goals help you get to your vision. So a lot of business owners and a lot of people, period, will just start saying, my goal is to, make $5,000, every week. That's a goal. Or they'll say, my vision is to have, that's not a vision, that's a goal. Your vision is, who do you see yourself and your business in the future? And what is your overall? So first of all, it doesn't affect your purpose. Your purpose is the why. Why is it affecting why? What is it that you feel that you will have an impact on, and what you were created to do? That is your purpose. What is it that you bring to the earth that nobody else can do it like you? And it's not necessarily a skill. It's just the fact of, what is it? What is that thing that your business purpose is going to do? And then your vision for it. How do I now look at what I was created to do? What does my vision tell me that is? Your vision, your purpose drives your vision. So you're saying, oh, I was really impacting women, or my business is to create healthy, foods or whatever. That's your overall purpose, is to create healthy foods. Now through the vision what do you do in business? Well, I provide vegan dishes, or I cook, keto. And so that's a part of your vision. Now you have the mission. These are your clients. These are the people that you serve. Your mission are the people that you serve. Mission is target market, target audience. And those are the individuals that you serve. Now you identify that group, and then you're looking at, okay, well, if I'm serving this particular group, then now I need goals. How am I going to get to that overall vision? Well, you're going to establish, I need a building, or I need, a call-in orders. So I'm being very general in regards to the process, because I'm not a cook or anything like that. But as far as the steps, very specific. The purpose is the why of what you do. Your vision is, again, what is it that you're going to do to accomplish that? Your mission, who's your market, who's your people? How are you going to do that? And then taking a look at, how are we going to identify the goals that's going to help you accomplish your vision? I'll tell you, this works in any arena, any territory, whether it's personal, professional, spiritual. That is what works. It's really identifying and getting clarity on where you are. There is no way you can perform at your highest and best self if you lack clarity.
I love that. And Christy Porto, you have your hand raised. You have a question? Hey, Christy.
Yeah, there I am. Hey. Sorry, I didn't make it to the hair and makeup department today. I had been, though, but today I didn't. I've been following you for a while, Dr. Kimberly, and I love everything that you say. And I'm really in that repurposing stage right now. I'm fortunate to still have a job through all of this, but I work for the airline. And I took a lower level position. I was a VP for another company in HR a couple of years ago. And I've got a 4-year-old and a son who's on the spectrum. So it was just very challenging with my husband having a demanding job. And I guess for the past, and I enjoy where I work at the airline, but I work in training and development. And so, but my purpose and my motivation, I just have been feeling back to burnout, and so I just kind of been doing this soul seeking, and I went and got certified as a marriage coach. And I finished last March. And so I've been coaching people just on the side. And before I kind of went back into the workplace, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I felt a calling to do it from the Lord. And so I started building this coaching company, and it's kind of, my purpose. Why do I want to do this? It's because me and my husband had nearly divorced years ago. God took us through this journey, and we have successfully rebuilt our marriage. And so now I want to help see other marriages restored, families preserved. And so I'm taking everything I've ever learned, and I have built this online curriculum. And I started doing it before I went back to work after I had my daughter, but things just weren't lining up. So it just kind of got set on the shelf. And then when I left my VP job, I decided to go get my certification in coaching. I said, okay, I'm going to pick this back up. And so I started working on my curriculum again. And so this has been like a 4-year process I've been going through. And then it just kind of went, when I took my job at the airline, it just went back on the shelf. And then I just been coaching kind of people, just kind of here, taking 1 or 2 clients on here and there. But I've just been praying. I've just been hearing the Lord tell me, get that curriculum done, get it out there. This is your calling, do it. And I've just been like, okay, well, when do I have time? Because I'm a full-time, I work full-time. I've got a 4-year-old, my son's in school, my husband works, and an hour commute back and forth every day to Las Colinas, and we live in North Fort Worth. I'm thinking, Lord, when? Show me when, help me know. And then this happens. So I decided about 2 weeks ago, that I was going to just buckle down. And I said, you know what? I'm at home, and I'm blessed to be able to work from home right now. And it's chaos in my house right now. My son goes to part-time homeschooling, part college prep school. They quickly transitioned to all online the week after spring break, and they have put all of it on us.
Yeah.
So my husband was so blessed. I mean, we were blessed. We really are. And I pray for everybody who's going through bad situations with no jobs. But my husband got a promotion. If that's not the Lord speaking right there, he got a promotion as a manager over 18 people. He works for the railroad here in Fort Worth for BNSF, and he's leading a team of 18. Oh, can y'all hear me? So I mean, what a blessing. So he's on the phone. I mean, he talking about stress, new manager, new dynamics, COVID going crazy. I mean, and then the railroad, they got to make sure the apps, because they're technology, they got to make sure those apps are up, because that's what Amazon and Walmart are looking at to see if those shipments are coming in for us. So he's busy. I'm trying to homeschool. I got a 4-year-old at home, and I'm trying to work. But God has made a way for me to get my work done. And then I've completed, so I've got 2 programs in my marriage coaching. One is for broken marriages, through affairs and things like that. And the second program is just the 7 needs of a marriage. I have already finished one program. I'm almost done with the second one. I had today went through and revamped my website. I mean, God has just given me these buckets of time and letting my little girl play, my son be self-sufficient. But it's just like, I've quickly went through repurposing, because here's what I do know. After September or October, I may not have a job at the airline.
Say it again, Christy. Your mic.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now?
It's kind of shaky.
Let me turn this on. Let me go to my other mic. Oh, come on.
Yes.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what I do know is that I think come September, I may not have a job at the airline, because the stimulus package, right? So they can't lay us off until after September. My boss has already said, training and development. And right now we're not training anyone. We're just revamping curriculum. So I just said, you know what? I got to do what I know I need to do, because I may not have a job come September. But I know this is my calling, because this is what I'm so passionate about doing. And now when I look and I say, that's why, I feel like I just get up, I go to work, I have a paycheck, but I don't feel like I'm living my purpose in life. So I've quickly gone through, okay, what's my new purpose and what's my new vision? And, and everything was there. I just needed to finish out writing some of this curriculum and get it in the
in my Think If It platform, so that way I can start selling this and start taking on more clients. So it's just real exciting. I guess I'm just trying to think more positive and praying for everyone who's not going through a fortunate situation. But of course, it's just how you see life, right?
Listen, first of all, congratulations. That is huge. And I think everybody's echoing that. Congratulations to you
Thank
and
you.
your husband. And then also just for you not giving up. Sometimes the win is in not losing. I mean, I don't know that sounds crazy, but sometimes the win is in not losing. It's just like not giving up. And so for those 4 years that you've been fighting for your purpose, it all leads you to the destiny road of where you are now. And so I do want to say that you're actually in self-preparation, which is being ready, getting ready today for what you can plan for and have tomorrow. And so in that, just as we said earlier, being fueled by vision and ambition. And this is what I have. In the self-preparation stage, in crisis, you're either going to have self-preservation or self-preparation. And in that, the vision generates expectation. So you now have this fresh vision on what it is that you're supposed to do and where the Lord is leading you. In that, the vision is now generating your expectation. You got to get it on Think If It. You got to start monetizing it. You got to start having a market where you reach couples and those types of things. And so now the self-preparation part in the crisis is while you're still working and while your son is doing the online platforming and while your husband's trying to navigate through, his uncharted territory, you now have a vision that's going to generate greater expectation, and you're going to have to carve out time for that, like you've been doing. And another thing, ambition fuels focus. And it sounds like after those 4 years, you remain ambitious behind it. There was just other things that had to happen. Sometimes we have to keep it real. Like, we may have passion, but sometimes responsibility trumps passion. When you have responsibilities to take care of, passion takes a back seat sometimes. And so I just want to encourage you to take on this self-preparation. Right now, you're getting ready for tomorrow.
Yep, you nailed it.
So that's what we're doing. You're getting ready for tomorrow, today, and that's during this crisis. And that's the same for Colette. That's the same, for many of us, even myself as a business owner and just being full-time in this thing. It'll be a year next month where I full-time without, any extra income from a 9 to 5. For me, the thing is, I've had to make sure that I continue to pay myself. I've been able to hire 2 new contract workers and 1 employee. And so it's in those things, learning that terrain, Rashida, learning that and navigating, I had to stop because I was pushing through trying to be the owner, like the business owner, and pay people and didn't know what I was doing and struggling and getting anxiety. Having like anxiety and crying attacks and stuff because I'm trying to, this is how you do it. No, I had to go back and learn. And I also had to go hire help for people who did it better than I do, and people who could teach me, and that I could actually stay in that growth gap a longer period of time, but yet not lose momentum. So kudos to you, Christy. And also, we want to think about when we talk about vision and what Christy was saying, what the Lord had for her during this season. You actually had your husband actually had a promotion in a time where it's chaos. And then you had downtime in a way now where you can actually honor the gift and what he has for you. You can honor the purpose that you've been placed on this earth to do. So I think that's amazing. I think this is a dynamic discussion, and it feeds to, in this crisis, are we going to be self-preserving, or are we going to be preparing? I think this, and I want to say this, Leah, for all of us, and we can jump in, but I think for most individuals, it's this thing right now where people who are in, we're saying we should be praying, or you should be, praying and asking God for what's going on and getting, in that realm. And then other people are saying you should be producing, and, and then other people saying you should be doing self-care, and other people, so there's so many voices that's telling us what we should be doing. And I want to be the voice to tell you that you should be doing, the thing that you were given to do. Ask, the Lord, what is it that I'm to do now? If it's your business, if it's praying for people, why can't you pray and do business? Why can't you do self-care and produce? Why can't we do those things? I'm just going to get so real, even with the loss of my brother-in-law, and it was fresh. It's still fresh. It's a week tomorrow. My sister, I can't get to her. My mom can't get to her. My sisters can't get to her. No one can hug her. No one can love on her. And she lost her husband of almost 20 years. And so when you think about that, she's in a place now where we are not only in a crisis, but we have the lingering effects of a pandemic that's interrupting our family, that family unit where we can't even be there for her. And so for about 3 days, I did nothing. All I could do was cry with her, be there for her, think ahead and what is it that we can do, and really, just think about my brother-in-law and grieve. But I didn't put a time limit on my grief. What I did, I had to compartmentalize it in a way where it was healthy for me. And so I think people are telling us what to do, but your situation will actually tell you what it is that you need to do. Like whenever if you lost your job, is it a level of ready, set, reset? You have to reset somewhere. Are you going to look for a new job, or are you going to stay in a state of depression? It's all, but you're still praying. It doesn't change. So I hope the message that I'm sending here is that everybody's unique situation is unique. But when we think about producing, I want us to keep in mind those 3 P's. Produce. That means to bring into existence. It's like the steam. You can still produce and not put the full, like again, the steam that's coming from the pot, but you're not cooking the noodles just yet. And then productivity. Once you move past that part, then measuring your effectiveness. How are you moving forward every day? Maybe it's not every day. Maybe it's every other day. But then the performance. What are your true outcomes? Who are you really impacting with your business? Who are the people you're really impacting at work? Who are the people you're connecting with as a student? Are you really learning? Even for Olga, I think you said something about school and that nature, but are you really learning the craft or the knowledge that you can help you in this season? It's going to help the people that you're going to impact. And so I think we have to dig a little deeper as it relates to productivity and not put it all in one. And just figure out, where are we in this process during this crisis? It would be crazy for me to tell my sister right now to go produce something. So it's not a blanket statement for all. Right now, she's in self-preservation. And I think we all agree that that's okay. But someone else may be in self-preparation, like Christy, like Colette. And so I think we have to be able to not put our limitations or our experiences on other people and make them feel guilty for something or a place that they're in right now.
I love that. Especially with so much that's circulating on social media and the pressures that can come from things that you're seeing. We're online almost all day. And so you can feel that nudge, to be in a certain space. And like when we were on the phone, we were talking about it, like it just depends on whatever season you're in your life. And so you don't want to force it when really, like you said, for your sister is to be in self-preservation mode at this point in time. It would be crazy for her to beat herself up to produce.
Yeah, I want to give 2 biblical examples for you all.
Yeah.
When we think about crisis and if you think about vision, I want to definitely talk about Noah. And I said this in a Bible study that I had yesterday, is that if you all know, Noah built that ark and he didn't have a blueprint. He was in the middle of a crisis and he still had to go and identify measurements. He had to identify the type of material he needed. He had to, and before he could even get to the boat, yet he was still he was in the producing stage. There was no productivity. He hadn't put a nail in any wood. He hadn't put anything together, but he was producing. You couldn't see it, but he was producing. And so I just want to share that, what that looks like at different stages. And so from that, he was able to, he didn't even have a blueprint. Some of us, Colette was speaking about just a reset. When he was building, that's a whole reset. He didn't even know what it looked like. He never had a picture of, if you notice the Lord never said, here, Moses, this is what your ark, here, Noah, here's what your ark is going to look like. And I need you to build it like this. He didn't do that. He didn't give him a vision. He was in an obscure place and he had instructions and direction. And right now we need clarity so that we can have instruction and direction for what it is that we're doing. If it's going to school, if it's moving in our business, if it's reestablishing our coaching programs, what are those things that you need instruction and direction for, yet you can't see the outcome just yet, but you're moving under instruction and direction and you're producing. You're not putting the nails and everything together and putting the animals in yet. And then the next thing I want to remind us is Nehemiah. For those of us who have this riff about should we be praying or should we be working, Nehemiah went and built a wall. It was his purpose. There were so many people who tried to build a wall before he actually walked into his purpose to rebuilding the wall. And when he did it, y'all, they were fighting him. There were things around him. He was in crisis. And what I want to encourage you all to know is that he fought and built. And the people around him, they fought and they built. And it's okay if we are in a crisis and we're fighting against, trying to not watch Netflix all day and trying not to be comfortable. You fight and you build. We have this thing that we should be perfect and that it's this already laid out plan for us. We have to fight and build. And we'll accomplish the overall outcome, which is our vision. I think Ariel had a question.
Yeah, Ariel says, how do you get the clarity? Through prayer?
Prayer as well, but I think prayer is again, it's a resource, but I think that you get clarity through prayer, but also you get clarity through writing down your thoughts and what are you listening to, and really just looking for what is it that you really want to connect to in this time. Like, what am I really to be connecting to and doing? So prayer is one of the resources, absolutely, but then clarity of thought and action, writing things down, and actually moving forward. What am I supposed to do? Right, just doing. Whenever I need clarity, I do pray, but I also write, and I also seek out books and different resources that helps my thought process that moves toward that particular area. And so I'll get more clear. Even when we talk about the book Promise, Leah, I rolled out the book, Ariel, saying that we have this book for 100 women to do a devotional, and 100 women for 100 devotions that write about 100 promises. And so initially I didn't have clarity on it. I prayed about it, and then I thought about it. The initial thing was to help women during this time be able to connect with other women when they write their promise. It's a scripture, and they write how this actual scripture helped them. And so it would be a devotion where other women would gain encouragement, and they would gain, strength, and they would gain greater insight, but they would also gain another revenue stream to where they would gain insight, divine inspiration, but then they're able to sell books. And so if they ever hit a time of crisis like this, if they're ever in a time, they know how to creatively and intentionally generate product that's going to give them income. You're welcome, Olga. Thank you so much.
Olga.
And so in that, I just wanted to share with you all, is clarity comes the more you pray, but also the more you seek out, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it connected to my purpose? What is it that the vision looks like for this? And then just really writing it out, reading on it, and just being quiet too, and not asking everybody, what do you think about this? And what, because now that's other avenues that are coming in that you now have to sort through and figure out. And so hopefully that helps. But again, another thing, clarity is focus. You get clarity when you're focused. We lose clarity when we're not focused. You can't get clarity when you are not focused.
I love that, Dr. Kimberly. And when you said be still, like that's all, I was like, when I'm still, especially how this pandemic has calmed me down, because everybody knows the joke around town is, Leah, you're everywhere. Now I can't be everywhere. You know where I'm at. I'm at home. But I meditate, and it's important for me because it clears out all the gunk in my head, because I can have 200 thoughts at the same time. So if I need to focus on that one, just sitting down, even if it's for 5 minutes, first thing in the morning, after I have my conversation with God or I go through my devotional, okay, now let me get on my mat and just clear my mind space and get that focus. And then another thing on clarity, what helps me is not to force the process either, because I'm a visionary. I'll get all sorts of ideas, and even with the program I'm about to roll out, it's something that I wrote it down. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, but I can't force the A to Z. And God just delivered today the middle part for me. It's like, I know I'm going to have to do it. I had clarity on this is what I'm supposed to do, but that middle part was just fuzzy. But what I didn't do was force it, get upset, try to rush something and put something out that I know wasn't in line with what his vision was. I just let it come into flow. And then once it did, now he showed me the direction. Okay, I'm like, now I'm a horse out the gate. So you don't have to force it when it's not there, because then you're moving out of alignment, and then that makes it even more stressful.
Just very much so. And thanks for sharing, Leah, because we can't force it. And always think about when the children of Israel were, the Exodus happened, they were actually, free from Egypt. And when you think about that, he gave them a promise, but they didn't know they're going to remain in the wilderness. So
Right.
so we have a vision, but we don't know we're going to remain in the unknown territory for too long. And so that was a whole nother story about their disobedience. But it also speaks true to what Leah was saying. If we start to try to do things, now we're out of alignment. Now we're in disobedience. Now it's frustrating. It doesn't mean we're not going to get there. It just takes us a little longer. And so I wanted to encourage all of us that when we do have a vision and we've written down what the goals are, sometimes we don't know the steps or when it's going to happen, because sometimes you get things based on, based on your Jeremiah 29:11. Sometimes you get things based on your Jeremiah 1:5, meaning he says, I created you in your mother's womb. I knitted you together. I knew you before you were a person. You had a purpose. So sometimes you get these desires that are of the spirit, in the, for you, the spirit is leading you to this desire, but it's not for you to do it right now. And so you may have a desire, but it's a part of your Jeremiah 1:5, meaning he already knew it, and the spirit is bringing it up in you to let you know it's there. And so we're trying to act on it, but it's a desire that, yes, you need to pay attention to, but you're not actually dealing with it in this way right today. So it's things that I know that I'll do, but they haven't come yet up in the way that I think it's the right timing. And that can be frustrating, because you can get a glimpse of destiny or a glimpse of the future, and it's not yet there. And it's almost like Bishop Jakes was talking about instinct, and he talked about a giraffe and how they eat 6 feet ahead. Their neck stretches 15 feet. So their body is in the back, but their neck is 15 feet in the sky, eating off trees that they see in their vision in the next place, but their body is still in the same place. Sometimes that's for us, especially Rashida, we're talking about that territory. Sometimes we see our vision and where we're going and what we're doing now, it's at the next place, but where we're planted or where we're working and where we dwell is in our current space. And we have to still come back and deal with where we are, knowing that what's ahead of us is going to be there for us.
That was so good.
That was too good. Too good. Ooh. So good.
So yeah.
So does anybody have questions for Dr. Kimberly? Anybody feeling stuck? Anybody feeling any pressure right now? Thank you to everybody, Christy and Colette and Rashida, just everybody that has been commenting and putting your questions out there. We know that this is a very sensitive, but I think it's an exciting time. I think there's going to be a lot of good things to come out of this for a lot of people, and I'm excited. I wake up every day.
I'm excited for, even though we're in the middle of the crisis and things are coming at us every which in every way, but I just really believe that those who are praying and those who are preparing and those who are, again, in the place of, am I producing? Is it productivity or performance? I think I know we'll be okay. But it's all in the context. If you know on Sunday you're not going to do anything, don't do anything. That's your way of producing. That's your way of doing the work that you want to do for that day. If it's watching television, kicking your feet up, not taking business calls, then that's okay. And so we have to know to give ourselves some grace, but at the same time, what is our level of productivity? Because that's going to equate our outcomes. Good night.
Hi, Ariel. So Dr. Kimberly, first, before you tell everybody how they can follow you and all that good stuff, just one more time, throw out the information about the book. I had to marinate on my three scriptures today to put in the form. I just have to let you know. I was like,
okay. No, thank you so much. I actually know that we're going to meet 100 women. That's not a goal. That's a vision. That's a decree. Like, he already promised us this, and I'm excited for the 100 women. It's called Promise, God's assurance of our crown on the cross. And so it's reinforcing his decree word, his word that he's already promised us, his official word under his spiritual authority, what he said to us. And what we're doing as women, if you've held on to a scripture, or this scripture helped you, or you find the scripture has been your favorite scripture and it helped you to actually do something or accomplish something or go through something, then that's your promise. And so I want you to write about your promise and really sharing in the devotion of drawing other women to Christ through your story. It's 500 words or less, and I have the template. Once you sign up, you do get a template, and it's going to be super, super nice, but it's also just very methodical in the way we're going to reach women. And I said today, when you think about the promise is really, it's the evidence that you're presenting that promise now came through you. So you're the evidence. You're the evidence that God's word is true, and it's true because it came through you. And now you're just going to document it. And it's the law of documentation, where you now document it. And now from the documentation, that legalizes it, and other women will be activated. It's going to be dynamic. And so I just wanted to share that with you all. And if you would like more information, go to sparklepublishing.net/promise. You can take a look at it. It is amazing. Our women have already signed up. There are co-authors that are there. Here, some of them are here now. And so, again, I'm just excited. It's going to be amazing. I don't even know what God is going to do. It's kind of like what we all were talking about tonight. I just have the direction and instruction. Whatever he's going to do with it, it's going to be so amazing. But I do know one thing, that he's caused me to not pull women with me, but carry women alongside me. And that means there's nobody behind me. We're all right here. So if someone goes as a forerunner before me, I'm good with that, because I know that she's going to be right here and she's going to carry me alongside her. And he's called me to do that, but also to help women generate an extra revenue stream, and to help them to be able to know that even in crisis, it might not make you rich, but it can actually help you start to manifest other things and to create other things. And so this is going to be a launching pad for a lot of women. It's going to wake up a lot of things, and there's going to be deliverance from a lot of things that we've been dealing with from this devotional.
And I'm so excited. So I'll put the link in the comments. Y'all just copy paste it. Get in touch with Dr. Kimberly. It's going to be phenomenal. I know it's going to bless so many people. And I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly, for giving me your time. I know you are, an hour ahead? Lord Jesus.
Listen, I am an hour ahead.
It is super late, but thank you so much. And for those that want to follow you, how can they follow you and get in touch?
Well, you can go to drkimberlyellison.com. That's my website, but I would love to connect with you on social media. I think most of you I'm already connected with, whoop, whoop. But it's Facebook at Dr. Kimberly Ellison, or you can go to Kimberly Ellison, which I utilize that one as well. But Dr. Kimberly Ellison is my page, and then you can go to Instagram for Dr. Kimberly Ellison.
And for all of you guys that think this was power packed, this will be up on my YouTube channel, Leah Frazier. And you can also follow Think3 Media on Facebook. I'm going to give this to Dr. Kimberly to share out. So anybody that you know, girlfriends or people that you know that are struggling during this time, please, when this comes out, share this video with them to encourage them. And you can rewatch it again and again. It'll also be on my podcast as well. And I'll have all that information for Dr. Kimberly and also on Think3 Media. So we have many more of these to come. I just had to take a break this week because I did like 15 and I was almost burning myself out. So but I had to do Dr. Kimberly this week because I was like, people need to hear this right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for trusting me with your business platform and the things that you're doing. This is, I mean, again, it's a big deal when people trust you to come on board. And so I don't take it lightly. I thank you and I appreciate you. And thank you to the ladies who gave up some time tonight, joining in, supporting. I see, look, so Coach D, Heather, Rashida, Christy, Ariel, Colette. So y'all, thank you ladies for joining in, supporting, and just sharing, because it takes all of us. Especially, that was the one thing I wanted to say. Heather's there. One thing I wanted to say is in the high performing piece, the teams that perform the highest and the people that perform the highest, it calls for innovation and collaboration. And when you do not collaborate in a time of crisis, you're going to find yourself in a true isolation. And it won't just be in your house. It'll be in your business.
That's deep. Well, thank you, Dr. Kimberly. We have a lot to think about. I'm excited to see what comes out of this. And you guys keep in touch. We want to support each and every single one of you, especially during this season. So please do not hesitate to reach out. I want to wish you all a very good night. Dr. Kimberly, thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, good night, ladies. Thank you all so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.